Yeah, just that's how it happened. Wow, I was really good.
Hello and welcome to the Stephen King Read-a-thon. I'm Ty.
I'm Jordan. Yeah, that's me.
Sorry. I didn't know if you were going to get the cue to introduce yourself.
Okay.
But I was going to.
You want to try it again?
I'm a fool. No, it's okay. We'll keep that in.
Okay.
The Stephen King Read-a-thon, where we are slowly but surely working our way through all of Stephen King's fiction and discussing it here in a weekly video series. So if you haven't been following along, we've already discussed Carrie. If you want to check that out, click on the thing somewhere.
Yeah, there it is.
There'll be a thing.
You just pointed to it, so you better click on it.
Yeah, I'll put it. There'll be a thing. This video is the first one we're doing on Stephen King's second novel, Salem's Lot, and it's exciting. So let's get into it, because we already did Carrie. It's behind us. Let's get into Salem's Lot, but before we do, please consider liking, commenting, and dare I say, subscribing to the channel.
Dare you? You dare do that.
If you subscribe to the channel, you'll get, our weekly videos. We've been posting. We've been good about it. We've been consistent, posting every week about our Stephen King discussions. And I've also got some fun ideas for other things I want to do on this channel. A bunch of random ideas. There's really no theme on this channel. It's weird. But yeah, you'll be getting those if you subscribe. So feel free. Hey.
It's entertainment. That's the theme.
I was going to tell you, guess who subscribed this last week? We got a new subscriber.
Who?
Some guy, I don't know if you know him, Fred Bloomquist. He's got the same name as you.
Get out!
Yeah.
I don't know him.
He seems pretty cool.
Yeah. Well, I'm sure he is probably pretty cool, but
I mean, I don't know anything about him, but I could just tell he's really handsome. Really handsome. The Prologue. I had a hard time getting into this book, to be honest.
Yeah. Well, it's a little bit slower than Carrie, but I feel like it's a slow burn book. Like, as I was reading, there is a lot that I was like, all right, this can be good. This has a lot of potential, but it wasn't as, like, you read the first page of Carrie and you're like, oh, it's grabbing me. Got to get to know more.
I thought it was interesting because we read the prologue and the first two chapters.
Yeah.
And I felt at the end of the second chapter, I was like really getting into it. But the prologue, I had a hard time. I barely even started the book until like a day or two ago, because it was just dry. I think what it is that the character in the prologue, he's just called the Tall Man. He doesn't have a name. So it's like, it's hard to like, you can't identify with him or like kind of get to know him. He's just like a tall guy. Like, yeah. That's how he's described.
But I did like that as you read, like I agree, in the beginning it is kind of dry and you're like, well, who is this? Why should I care about him? But as you read more, it becomes more interesting and like, well, who are those people? Are they going to introduce them later on, or what's going on? So it kind of leaves a cliffhanger going on there. So
I think definitely as I started reading, because at first I just felt like it was confusing. It was like, who are these people and what are they doing? But after you kind of get the big picture, it brings in a certain element of suspense.
Right.
Who are they? So it's a tall guy and a kid who we later find out is not his son. I thought it was his son. It says they moved from Maine, or they left Maine. They drove all the way to California, and then they crossed the border into Mexico to Los Zapatos, and the shoes. And good hatch.
Nice. I'm practicing.
And it doesn't really flat out say it, but it kind of gives the vibe that they're running or they're hiding from something, right? Did you get that vibe?
Yeah. They're just like scared of something.
Yeah, they go to this really out of the way tiny town in Mexico, and they're laying low basically. But the guy goes north every week to get a paper from Maine, and he keeps checking the news from Maine until he finds a paper that talks about this town, Salem's Lot, or actually the full name is Jerusalem's Lot. but people there call it Salem's Lot or just the Lot, right? So that was another part of the prologue that I thought was, I guess it just made it a little bit drier. Like half the prologue is a newspaper article.
Oh yeah, that's true.
And so he reads this newspaper article and it just describes about how all these people from Jerusalem's Lot have like left town. Like basically everybody has abandoned the town like almost overnight. And it's like nobody really knows why, and it's weird. It's just become this ghost town like really, really fast. And all the businesses have shut down. Nobody lives there. It's just like really weird and abandoned. And then it says like the kid who's with him starts going to the Catholic church nearby, and he makes like a confession, and the priest is like all freaked out about his confession. And like that's all we know.
Right. You don't know what the confession is. The priest is like, oh my goodness.
Oh, and then it says the tall man tells the kid that he's going to go back to Salem's Lot. So then, like, that's where it ends. We don't know who that is. I'm guessing, I don't know. I got like, when I was reading it, I was like, oh, this is probably, like, the main character guy. Like, after I started chapter 1, we meet Ben Mears. Mears? I don't know.
Mears, yeah.
And I was like, oh, this is probably the tall guy. But then I don't know if maybe we're supposed to think that, but it's really not. Maybe a twist coming down the line. I don't know.
That's what I was wondering, because the tall guy said that he was a writer like years back, right?
Oh, did he? I didn't notice that.
I think at the very first he said that he did a little bit of writing or something like that. And then Ben Mears is also a writer. So yeah, I was wondering if there's a connection there, or if it's just trying to get us to fall into that false notion of that's the same character.
Could be a red herring, yeah, because like it seems like, well, yeah, it's got to be him, but then if it were him, why wouldn't it just call him Ben?
Right.
Like it goes out of its way to like not use his name. So that was a little bit strange. So then chapter 1, it kind of jumps back in time, right? The prologue is like after the main events of the book, we're guessing. And then chapter 1 kind of rewinds, and it's Ben, who I mentally picture as Ben Wyatt from Parks and Recreation. You ever watch that show?
Yeah.
I just have that in my head. Like that's him.
Super funny, dude.
And I can't get it out. Like that's him.
Okay. Shoot. Now that's what I'm gonna picture.
He's an author. He's working on his 3rd book, I think, right? He's written like 2.
Yeah.
And he spent some time in Jerusalem's Lot as a kid. So he's come back to Jerusalem's Lot to work on his next book. It was like 25 years ago that he was in the town, and like it's been a long time. And he comes back, and it's bringing up all these memories. And like I think it's pretty clear he's got like a complicated relationship with his town, right? Like it kind of seems like he doesn't like the place. Like it holds a lot of like darkness, but at the same time, like he wants to be there. Like why did he come if it's all bad? You know what I mean?
Yeah, well, he did kind of have a troubled childhood. Like his mother and father weren't there to raise him. It was his aunt Cindy, right? Yeah. And so, yeah, I think all that just kind of mixed with everything was kind of hard for him to come back. And I think he was worried that it was all going to be different. And so he drives into town. Yeah. And then there's some things that have changed, but there's this one house that doesn't look any different at all.
I think just pause real quick.
Pause.
Something that I mean, we've only read 1 book and now we're starting the 2nd book, but something that so far I've really enjoyed about Stephen King is like he's writing about small towns, and like I grew up in a tiny town, and it just like I can easily picture it being my town. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, I mean, not 100%, but pretty much. He talks about, there's houses up on the hill, and our town had like a hill, and then like, oh, there's the river going by. I'm like, well, we had a river near our town kind of thing. And it's like, I just easily picture it. He talks about Salem's Lot has a population of like 1,300 people, which is even smaller than our town actually.
Right.
But still, I mean, it's just a small place. So like, I like that a lot. I haven't read a lot of books that take place in like small places.
Yeah. And it makes it a little bit more eerie too, I think. There's less people. I don't know why, but yeah.
So he's an author. He comes. Oh, so he's talking about this place, the Marston house. Shout out to my friend from high school, Sarah Marston. our friend.
This has nothing to do with her because this is a scary house and she's not scary and all of that.
So then we meet Susan. And chapter 2 is a little bit longer, and I think this is where it started to get really good. You start to actually get some answers. It's like only chapter 2, and you're already, I don't know. I'm sure there's going to be a lot more questions coming down, but we figure out why Marston House is so creepy.
Right.
Which was an awesome story.
Yeah.
I kind of talking too much though.
No, I kind of got the chills when I was reading that part. Did
Me
you?
Too.
Yeah.
Me too. Yeah.
I was
definitely.
like, oh, this is a little scary. So yeah, so we meet this girl Susan, right? Susie.
Yeah, he meets her in the park.
Okay. Yeah. Yeah, and she recognizes him because she's reading one of his books that he previously wrote, and she's all giddy and stuff. And she's like, "Oh my gosh, you're this guy that just wrote this book that I'm reading, and woohoo, and I love you and stuff."
And then, did you find it a little bit creepy? Like, I think it said he's 9 years older than her. I mean, which is not an enormous gap, but like.
Yeah, I was wondering how. Yeah.
He signs her book for the prettiest girl in the park, like, right. And he just met her.
That part was a little bit stockish-y.
And she's quite a bit younger than him, but yeah, I don't know. I mean, it's not. I don't know. It was just a little bit odd, but then she really likes him too. They start talking. They end up going on a date or two.
We go to the movies.
Oh, I think we should point out. I think he's kind of planting seeds, I think, that are probably going to come to something later. It's mentioned, so Susan goes home to her mom, Anne. Her mom's name is Anne. Susan Norton, Anne Norton. And she tells her that, like, she met this guy and all this stuff. And then her mom, like, really disapproves in, like, a passive-aggressive way, right?
Right.
Because his books have some racy material. I guess nothing, like, really over the top. But, like, the mom disapproves of that sort of thing. And then the mom mentions... Sorry, go ahead.
I was just going to say, I like when the mom calls, like, her friend to gossip. Yeah. And she tells her about this author and the books that he's written. And her friend's like, oh, yeah, that's a straight-up sex book.
Oh, yeah. She's like the town gossip or whatever. Yeah. She gets her information from her. Right. Oh, but so then the mom brings up, she's like, what about your boyfriend, Floyd? Floyd Tibbetts, I think his name is. So she's got like a boyfriend kind of guy named Floyd. But then she's like, no, I'm not really, like, she says that like her interest in him has been like kind of decreasing. But they've been dating for like a year and a half. And her mom thought they were going to get married and all this stuff. And she's like, nah. So I don't know. I think there's going to be conflict later on with this Floyd character.
Yeah. Oh, I definitely think so. Because fast forward just a little bit, we find out that Ben and Floyd used to hang out together too.
When he lived in the lot.
Yeah, when he lived in the lot.
And Ben specifically says that Floyd and the other guys they hung out with were a couple years older than him.
Oh, yeah.
What's this dude doing?
Yeah.
What's up with this girl
Ben's
dating
totally
guys?
fine. Ben's totally fine.
What's up with this girl dating guys who are like 12 years older than her? Like, I mean, I guess it is a really tiny town. Maybe there's not a lot of pickings to be had.
That's true.
The pickings are slim.
And age difference, like, it differs. It's less as you go up, you know?
Yeah.
And it doesn't say exactly how old they are. So she could be like 45 and he could be 55.
No.
And that would be totally fine.
No, we can figure it out. Because remember, he was in Salem's Lot when he was 9.
Oh, that's right. Okay, never mind.
And then and then it says that he's been gone for 20. At first it says 25, and then later it says 24 years. So somewhere around. So he's like 33, 34-ish.
Okay.
So I think her mom, there was a comment, I think it was by her mom, that made it sound like she had just turned 18. But if you do the math, she's got to be like 22 to 24, somewhere around there.
Okay, that's not crazy.
I mean, it's nothing too crazy, but a little bit. I don't know.
Okay. It's a little bit unusual.
I'm 29. I'm not judging. I'm not one to judge, you know? It does feel, I just thought it was a little bit strange. But I mean, my great aunt and my great uncle, they had a difference of like 20 years. He was like 94 and she was 74.
Oh yeah.
And it's not like at that age it didn't make any difference.
Right.
Like,
Right.
you know? But yeah, I think if you're in your early 20s and you're dating someone in their early 30s, that's a little bit of a gap, but it's not that big of a deal. It's not like anything creepy, or is it?
I don't know. Maybe it has everything to do with the book later on.
Maybe that'll be an integral. I don't know that word. I know how it's spelled. I don't know how it's pronounced. Maybe it'll be an important part of the plot later on.
Good. They'll be cursed, and then like the curse will be lifted because they were 9 years apart. So.
In the prophecy, it states only a couple that are 9 years apart.
That's stupid.
I think it was 9 years because he said they're talking about like their different experience. Maybe that's why he gave them different ages because they live in the same town, but they had different life experiences.
Yeah.
Maybe that's why. Because he talks about.
That's true.
He said that like he moved away when he was 9,
and
then she was like, or no, yeah, and it was like it was right after some big fire. And she was like, "Oh, that was the year I was born when there was a fire," or she was born the year after the fire, or something like that.
That's right.
So they're about 9 years apart. Maybe that's why, so that they wouldn't end up being like knowing all the same people.
Yeah, they have to have.
Although they do know some of the same people. So we wanted to get to the Marston house.
Okay.
So they're on their date, and you kind of go into Susan's perspective and her mind, and she's thinking about this story of the Marston house, and you find out why everyone thinks it's so creepy. And it's because there was like a murder-suicide there back in the day. Good old murder-suicide. That I honestly, when I was reading it, I was like, yeah, now things are getting good. This is interesting. I liked it. So it was this dude, Hubert Marston. He was like retired from a trucking company or whatever. He moved to Salem's Lot with his wife, Birdie, which I think is a cool name. They built this house.
Didn't they retire there?
Yeah, they retired.
They're rich. They retired there. Yeah, about this.
I think they built the house and then they like never came out. They came out like, did it say once a week or once a month or twice a month? Something like that.
Yeah. They
would only come to town every once in a while to get groceries. And then they would just like stay in their house all the time. Like nobody really knew what their deal was. And then their mailman was like delivering their mail and their mailbox was way too full. So he grabbed it all and he carried it up to the house to take it inside.
What a good guy.
Yeah. This is small town Americana, man.
Yeah, that's true. Another great thing.
What did mailman Larry McLeod discover?
So he goes up there. He smells this terrible, terrible smell.
Like rotting meat.
Rotting meat. Ugh, that's so gross. So he tries to go in the house, but the house is locked. He tries to look in the window.
He knocks on the door.
I thought that. Oh, that's right.
Answers, and then he goes around.
That's right. Well, he looks in the window. He can't see anything. He goes around, tries the back door, and he sees this lady in the kitchen, the wife of the guy that lived up there, with her face blown off. Yeah, just that's how it happened. Wow, that was really good. There's flies on her
head, like blown in pieces.
Yeah,
blood everywhere.
Really descriptive of there's stuff everywhere. She's
flies.
Got 30-06. Is that the gun that it said?
I don't remember what kind of gun, but it said her head was blown off.
A big gun, yeah.
And there were flies everywhere.
Yeah, so he's like, oh my gosh. And so he runs back down, gets the constable, gets a couple other loiterers at the general store.
Yeah, I love that, dude. Like stuff like that, honestly. It's like just such a throwaway line, you know, just like little details, but like
I know.
It's so quintessential small town. Like, oh, I'm gonna go get the cop and like these other dudes who are just hanging around. Like these good old boys are gonna come help us like figure out what's going on. And like that's what it's like, yeah. In small towns it's like, oh, they like
you don't have anything else to do.
Yeah, he's just always here. he's a good guy. He'll help us out. Come on. Like,
Yeah.
go
Come on,
investigate
Bill.
this murder.
That's right. So they all run up there. We're trying to figure out what's going on. And good thing for the mailman that he didn't walk in the front door, because there was a gun pointed to the door with a string attached to the doorknob that would have shot him if he would have
It was
come.
like loaded and like propped up
At
on a
chest height,
chair,
yeah.
ready to shoot whoever
Killed him
came in the
dead.
door.
Exactly.
Killed him.
Yeah.
So then they find like a bunch of weird stuff in the house. Like it's all full of junk. They're, I guess, like kind of like hoarders. And they talk about how the guy, the husband, Mr. Marston, that he had gone like soft in the head, that like his house was like, I don't know, it was just like a hoarder's place. It was all weird. There were all these magazines. And then one guy, he starts like riffling through the pages of his magazines and he finds it was a $1 bill, right? It was a dollar bill neatly taped to every page.
Yeah.
And which I have a lot of books. I've always thought it'd be really cool if I become like a millionaire to put like a $20 bill in each one of my books and leave them to my kids and see if they actually read them.
Or they just
like,
burn the books.
Yeah, tell my kid like, here, like, take, I want you to have these books. These are great, all this stuff. And then like see if my kids are like, dad and his stupid fantasy books, like they donate them to Goodwill or something.
And then you send them a
if they
secret
read
message.
them,
yeah, then you send them a secret message after the fact, after you
from
die.
beyond the grave.
That said, I hid all this money in the books. You burned them. You lost all this money.
You idiot.
Good
I don't know. It's the kind of thing you see in a movie, but like, who would do that in real life? But I've always thought that'd be interesting. Hide money in my books and then see if my kids actually like value the book. And then the lesson is like, the knowledge in these books is worth so much
money,
even though they're all not all fictional. They're not all fantasy books, but whatever. Anyway, beside the point.
Yeah. So
they go upstairs.
They find out also that there's other booby traps around the house too. Like this guy's gotten kind of crazy. Like he had 40 pounds of newspaper hanging over this one door. If you walk in, it'd like break your back or something. And then he rigged one of the steps up the stairs with a hinge. So if you step on it, you just break your ankle, pretty much. So weird stuff going on.
Did you get the vibe? I'm wondering, I don't know if maybe I just had this preconceived notion. I was reading this thinking that somebody killed the husband and the wife and then rigged the house. But then it says that like the guy must have kind of gone a little bit wacky in his later days and set up all the booby traps himself. I don't know, do you believe that? Do you think somebody else did it? Do you think it was him? I don't know.
I didn't think anything of it. I just felt like he did all of that. Like he was just kind of a crazy person. He shot his wife and then he killed himself. Yeah.
So they climb upstairs. They find him hanging from the rafter. And he's all like yucky.
Yeah. Being rude and sticking his tongue out. So rude.
So rude. So Susan is thinking about this on their date. And they're kind of talking about the Marston house. He tells her that he tried to rent it, and she's like, "You're crazy. Why would you do that?" And he's like kind of mysterious about it. And then he tells her about the time when he was 9 and he actually went inside the Marston house. She peeked in the window once. And so the Marston house has become this thing of like local legend that like the adults don't really want to talk about it. Well, maybe they do. Some of them do. They tell stories about it and stuff, but it's kind of like a hush-hush thing. But the kids, they tell each other stories and they embellish on them and they dare each other to go inside and all this stuff. So then Ben tells her the story of when he was 9, he was hanging out with Floyd and a couple other guys, and they didn't want him to hang out with them. And then he was like, "I'm cool, guys." It was like Tarzan when he's trying to hang out with the gorillas and they make him get the elephant hair. They're like, "You can hang with us if you go inside the Marston house." It's the initiation. So then he does. He climbs in through a window. He grabs a snow globe off the table as like proof. And then he still has the snow globe. It was mentioned earlier that he has it. And it like keeps reminding him of all this stuff. And then this is crazy. Like, I got chills reading this part. It's right towards the end of chapter 3. He's only 9. Remember that? Like, this 9-year-old kid. And this place is like, everyone's scared of this place. It's supposedly super haunted. But he's like, no, I got to prove how awesome I am. So he goes upstairs. He goes down the hall. And he's like, he starts running. Because, like, he doesn't want to let himself back down. He runs and he, like, grabs the door, pulls it open. And it, like, screeches really bad on the hinges. He goes inside, and what does he see? Hubert Marston, dead, hanging from the
Still
ceiling.
hanging there. Yeah.
So he sees the dead body, and this is 12 years after they were murdered. So they were murdered like in 1939-ish, like right. It talked about like right before Hitler invaded Poland.
Right. Yeah.
38,
right.
somewhere around there. And then this is 1951 when Ben is doing this as a kid. And he sees the dead body, and it like turns and it opens its eyes. And it's got like puffy eyes, and it's all like his face is all green. So he runs out and he's freaking out. He screams like crazy loud. He runs out. His friends have all like run away, and he catches up to him. And like no one believes him. Everybody says that he just imagined that he saw the body and all this stuff, because like how could the body still be there?
Yeah.
And then
why would he open his eyes?
Yeah, and the body opens its eyes and everything. And then it was cool because
one small pause. So this kind of reminded me of, do you remember when we were at the Middleton Lakes subdivision and we were in that lake, their little pond, and we psyched ourselves so bad. We were on that little tree stump. We psyched ourselves so bad that we were like talking about Jaws and sea monsters and stuff.
Talking about the Loch Ness Monster.
Yeah, dude. And
it was
like,
it's like this neighborhood in our town full of behind the houses are like these man-made ponds, lakes, and they were pretty deep.
Yeah.
And one of them had a tree in the water that like they didn't cut down. So, and the tree would come right up to the surface of the water. It was all dead. The leaves, there were no leaves or anything. It was just like a big trunk. And we would go sit on it and we would bounce on it, but it was like attached to the ground. So we would swim out, we'd be in the middle, and then like we started talking about the Loch Ness Monster coming up out of the water, and we got so scared. We were too scared to swim back to the shore. We were just like huddled on this little log.
And one of our friends had to go to work, and he was getting late for work because we were just like terrified. We were just working ourselves up so much that just like, what if someone like randomly put a shark in here, or like maybe the Loch Ness Monster is real and this is where it lives, or stupid stuff, but like you can work your mind to think that stuff is so real. And so that's what this all reminded me. Like I just kept thinking of that feeling of being in this house.
Yeah, imagining the dead body and everything.
Yeah.
Isn't that hilarious though? Like as an adult looking back, like it's not like it was a big lake. Like it was like not even a football field wide, you know? Like it was just like, I wouldn't even call it a lake. It was a pond. And like it was man-made. There was like nothing around there.
And it wasn't extremely deep. Like I remember we'd swim to the bottom of it sometimes.
Yeah, it was probably like 10, 15 feet deep.
Yeah.
I think it was kind of deep, but it wasn't like lake deep, you know?
Right.
I remember we would dive to the bottom and bring up rocks and stuff.
Yeah.
But yeah, I was straight up scared. I remember that. And that was in broad daylight.
Yeah, dude.
But the water was murky. You couldn't see more than a couple feet. So that's what made it so sinister. It was like anything could be down there. I think it's another pause tangent thing. I was reading about Salem's Lot on Wikipedia before we started reading it. And that image of the body hanging and like opening its eyes and stuff, apparently that's a nightmare that Stephen King had when he was a kid.
Oh, really?
Yeah, he had a nightmare that there was a body hanging and that like he looked at it and like it turned and it was like the flesh was all rotting but it was his face on the body, like as a child. So he kind of altered it a little bit and he put it into this book. But like he had messed up dreams, I guess, as a kid. Like that's scary.
That's interesting, dude. I like how he writes about that as this is now a reoccurring dream for Ben.
Yeah, that's what I was going to mention. So then Ben it's not just a one-time thing. Like, he's been dreaming about this off and on, like, you know, every once in a while for the last 25 years. And then, but in his dream, he sees the body and he turns to run, but the door is locked in his dream. So like he can't get out and the body's there with him and it's like freaky and all this stuff. Yeah. So then last thing, at the end of the chapter, he's dropping off Susan and they see that there's a light on in the Marston house. And they're both sort of like, ooh, what could that be? And they don't really know. And then, she asks him, is your latest book about the Marston house? But he won't give her an answer. He's like,
just kind of plays it off.
Yeah, he doesn't really answer her. So he wanted to rent the house to work on it there. So, I mean, I'm guessing probably it is about the Marston house. He specifically, the little boarding house where he's staying, he asked for a room on the 3rd floor so he could see the Marston house from his window. So he's trying to like, I think it probably is about the Marston house. Although it's funny, and this is a line that I didn't understand until I heard his story later on about the experience. But earlier on, he said that he would rent the house but never go upstairs. That he was always just going to work downstairs.
Oh, that's right.
But can you imagine, like, renting a house where that happened? I mean, if you're completely over it, I get it. Like, you could rent a house and you could live there and, like, it wouldn't bother you. But, like, if it's going to bother you to go upstairs, how could you live downstairs? Like, you know what I mean?
Yeah. Dude, if I knew that there's a murder-suicide in a house, I wouldn't even go near that house.
No?
I don't think so, dude. Well, I don't know, but that'd just be like, I guess I'd go near it, but that'd be another thing living in that house.
Yeah, I've heard that like crime scene murders in houses that it really drops property value.
Oh yeah, dude, I imagine.
As a kid, this is gonna sound so insensitive. When I was a kid, I was 2 years old when my great-grandma, I think my great-grandma, she died, and she died in our house, like in her rocking chair. And I remember my mom telling me that as a kid, and then I always thought about that. Like, there's an episode, this is gonna sound weird the way my mind works, but there's an episode of Malcolm in the Middle, I love Malcolm in the Middle, where like they find out that a family was murdered in their house, and like it's freaking the dad out and stuff. And I always imagine that from my grandma, like she passed away, but like in my childhood mind, I was like, she was murdered, like right here in the living room. Like it was like the same level. Like, I never said she was murdered, you know. I never thought that, but to me it was like the same. It was the same level of creepy. Like, a person died in this room. Like,
yeah, dude. Well, I can't even imagine like cooking in the kitchen. You're like, oh, that's where that lady's brains are blown out. It's probably all over the counters still. So pretty cool.
That would be, I guess if you think about it too much, it would be creepy. It'd be freaky.
Yeah.
So that's about it.
That was it.
So what do you think? So we've already kind of discussed, last week we mentioned, Drew, Salem's Lot is a vampire story. So I'm guessing the person who bought the Marston house is a vampire. That's my hypothesis at this moment. What do you think?
Or there could be a twist and Ben is a vampire.
Could be. Speaking of Ben's identity.
So just a thought of, so vampires live for hundreds of years, supposedly, right? And
well, let me stop you there. They don't live at all. They're undead. Okay.
Okay. All right. Sorry to get into it. But at the beginning of the book, it references the tall man saying that like 100 years ago he was a writer, and you kind of think of it as of just kind of like a exaggeration of like, oh, he was just a writer a while ago. But I wonder if like it's actually in a literal sense of.
I'm gonna need to reread the prologue. Maybe that's really interesting. Maybe the tall man is the vampire.
Yeah, I just wondered that because I knew it was about a vampire, and so I was like, is this just kind of hinting at? Oh, yeah, it's just supposed to make you think that oh, this is just kind of an exaggeration, but actually it was that long ago.
So yeah, well, that's really interesting because I was actually just about to bring up the prologue too, because it's not just the tall man. He's traveling with a young boy. And Ben, right now, as of the end of chapter 2, it's just him, and he's dating this Susan girl, and there's like no young kids in his life. So like, it's making me think maybe the tall man is not Ben, and maybe it's someone else, or he's gonna meet a young kid somewhere down the line, and they're gonna escape to town together. But I really like that idea that maybe that's the vampire, because it would kind of make sense either way. Ben's running and hiding from a vampire, or the vampire's running and hiding from the people who discovered him in the area and are trying to stab him in the heart with a stake.
A silver stake, or a bullet, right?
That's a werewolf.
Okay. Shoot, I guess
vampire,
I need to study up on my...
A vampire, you got to stab him through the heart with a stake, with a wooden stake.
Okay. What about garlic? What does that do?
Garlic, it just repels them. They don't like it.
Oh, okay.
There's let me get it here. There's a story. Where is it? You've heard of the movie I Am Legend?
Oh, yeah.
Did you know in the book they're vampires, they're not zombies?
Oh, okay. That's interesting.
So in the book, he's like a scientist guy and he's trying to find a cure.
Right.
And at one point he like starts trying to make serums out of garlic and onions and stuff because like garlic hurts vampires. So he's like, there might be something here. And like, he's trying to use, it's kind of funny.
So do they turn, are they regular people and they turn into vampires?
Yeah, I think so.
Oh, okay.
But what was I going to say? Oh yeah, a werewolf, you kill it with a silver bullet or a silver knife or something like that. Just a side note, has nothing to do with Stephen King. I recently read a pretty cool story, short story about a vampire. I'm not really into vampires, but all of a sudden these vampire stories have been popping up since we've been doing this reading. Where in this story, this is so weird and like might be offensive to religious people, but like it's this vampire.
I'm gonna say it anyway.
I'm gonna say it. It's just I didn't write the story. It's a vampire and he's like super duper powerful and nothing can kill him. And at one point he like shows that he cannot be killed. He stabs himself through, or he has somebody else stab him through the heart, and he just heals.
Mm-hmm.
And it turns out that he is Lazarus. That when Jesus raised Lazarus from the dead, he did it by turning him into a vampire. and then he couldn't die. And so like now Lazarus is like pissed because like he's been alive for 2,000 years and he hates it. And like he curses God and all this stuff. So then the twist at the end, he can only be killed by the spear that the centurion stabbed into Jesus's side while he was on the cross.
Oh, yeah.
He stabbed him. So it got coated in Christ's blood. So that's the only weapon that can kill Lazarus. And he's like seeking his own death. He's sick of being alive. So he breaks into the Vatican and goes to like the catacombs archives below the Vatican to find this spear. I can't remember what it's called. It's got a special name. And he gets killed with it and finally like finds peace. And I was like, that's a cool story, but you're just like crapping all over Christianity. like, oh yeah, you know, the savior of the world.
Vampires.
You know that great like miracle? He raised the guy from the dead? Yeah, that was evil. Like he created a monster. I don't know. It's a decent story. But anyway, hope you guys like this discussion. And we will continue with it. We'll read a couple more chapters this week. I'm getting excited because this book, it's a little bit sinister, and I think it's just going to get creepier as we go.
So read it during the daytime.
Read it during the daytime. So if you guys want to follow along, read the next couple chapters, 2-3 chapters of, probably 2 or 3 chapters, right?
Yeah.
Or what do you think?
Yeah.
Of Salem's Lot.
All right.
We should figure
Ciao.
Figure out a great way to end these videos.
Adios. See you guys.
Yeah. Hey, if you guys want to learn about, not learn, what am I saying? If you want to see our other videos, click something on the screen. Later.
Okay.
Is there anything we should say to each other before we just jump in?
Hypothetical question. Real quick. If a wizard comes up to you and he's like, would you like to be turned into a goat or a matter baby? Which one would you choose?
A matter baby? A what?
A goat or a matter baby?
What is that second thing? I don't know what that is.
A matter baby?
Matter?
Yeah.
Baby. What's a matter?
What?
What's a matter?
No, you have to say the whole thing.
What's the matter, baby?
Oh, nothing. What's the matter with you, baby?
You're so stupid.